In 2016, this was from either question 10 or 11, where you have three parts, three half parts, and you do two parts to answer that question. So this is a half question. So if you look at the question, it says write reduction in terms of electron transfer, and then in terms of change in oxidation number. So if we were just to answer the two of those, I'll just put the answers down here. So oxidation is loss, reduction is gain. And part two, if you're gaining electrons, the oxidation number decreases. So that answers the first of those two questions. In these two, you need to assign the oxidation numbers to the first one, is what it said, and then balance either one. So I'm going to do both. I'm going to assign the oxidation numbers to both first, and then I'm going to balance them. Again, I always start with the easier ones. This is -1, and this is +1 because they're ions and they have the charge, they have the oxidation number of the charge that they have. Then looking at here, oxygen is -2 and hydrogen is +1, and that adds up to -1. Here we have oxygen being -2, sulfur being +6, oxygen being -2, that's giving it a -6, but the whole thing adds up to -2, so that must mean that the sulfur is +2. Oxygen here is -2, and the chlorine has a +1. Chlorine bonded to something more electronegative like oxygen, it doesn't have its standard -1. So that's the first one. The second one then, again, starting with the easy ones, -1, +1, -1, 0, +1, -2, oxygen -2, and chlorine +5. Again, you see that the chlorine bonded to something more electronegative like oxygen, it just has to adjust. It doesn't have the -1 that it wants to have, so it just adjusts accordingly. So that is how we assign the oxidation numbers. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to balance the second one, because the second one is actually more straightforward than the first one. So if we just have a look to see what happens, the numbers going from left to right, the bromine changes and the chlorine changes numbers. So if we look at what happens to bromine, the number for bromine goes from -1 to 0, which is a +1, and +1 means that is loss of 1 electron, and that's oxidation. Oxidation is loss. And then the chlorine numbers goes from +5 to -1. So that number goes down by 6. So that's a gain of 6 electrons. And that is reduction. Reduction is gain. So if we're looking at this, the oxidation happens for the bromine, the reduction happens for the chlorine. That makes this the oxidizing agent. And it makes this the reducing agent. Okay, so that is the second one. And if we look at the balancing then, finally, so if we are gaining 6 here and losing 1 there, we're going to have to multiply this one by 6. So if we're multiplying that by 6, we need to put a 6 here. And that is what we need to do. So then basically 6 bromines, we need to have a 3 there, 3, 2, 6. Then looking at everything else, so if we look here, there's 3 oxygens There's only 1 at this side, so we need to put a 3 here. So we'll have to put a 6 there for the hydrogens. If we look at everything then, we've got 1 chlorine here, 1 chlorine here, 3 oxygens, 3 oxygens, 6 bromines, that's 6 bromines, and 6 hydrogens, 6 hydrogens. So that's all balanced, that one. What you should also find is that the charges should equal both sides. So that's, there's 1 here, 1 minus 1. So what you can do is you can go 1 minus 1 and 6 minus 1s, because there's 6 minuses there, and 6 plus 1s. And those two will cancel. You get minus 1 on the left being the charge. If you look here on the right, you've got 1 minus 1. That gives you 3 zeros and 3 zeros, which again balances. So minus 1 on each side is the charges. If we look at the top one, okay, again, same idea. What changes going from left to right? So one thing that changes is the chlorine. And the other thing that changes is the sulfur. As you do more of these questions, you'll see that it's always the same sorts of guys that are changing. So chlorines, sulfurs, bromines, oxygen sometimes. So you can see here what happens to the number for chlorine. So for the chlorine, the number decreases by 2. It's a minus 2. So that is a gain of 2 electrons. In here, the sulfur, it plus 4. The number does. Each sulfur, remember we're talking about 2 sulfurs here, but we work out the oxidation number for 1. So it's a plus 4 is what happens. And plus 4 means that it's a loss of 4 electrons. Remember, oxidation is loss. Reduction is gain. So since this is being reduced, this is the oxidizing agent. You can use the same oxidizing agent there. Word. And reducing agent is this guy here. So we've established that this is our oxidizing agent because it's being reduced. We've established that this is our reducing agent because it's being oxidized. What's a little bit more complicated with this one is the balancing. So what we're going to have a look at in terms of the balancing is we're going to say, right, there's 4 electrons lost here by each sulfur, but we do need to multiply that by 2 because there's 2 sulfurs here on the left. So that means in total there are 8 electrons that are being transferred. Here we've only got 2 that are being gained. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to multiply this one by 4 to get it up to 8 electrons here as well. So if we multiply this by 4, we put a 4 there. And that means that there's 8 being gained as well as 8 being lost. And then what we do is we just try to balance it. Now, first of all, we look at the chlorines. There's 4 chlorines here on the left. So we'll put a 4 there in front of the chlorines on the right. If we look at the sulfurs, there's 2 sulfurs here. So we'll put a 2 there. Make sure that we've got 2 on the right as well. Now, if we'll have a look at our oxygens. So on the left at the moment, we've got 4 here and 3 here, which gives us 4 and 3, 7, and 1, 8. And on the right here, there's 2 4s, which is 8 as well. So the oxygens are sorted. So the last thing that we need to look at is the hydrogens. There's 1 hydrogen here and 1 hydrogen here. So that seems okay. And the final check to make sure that it's balanced, 4 minus 1s is minus 4. And minus 2 gives us minus 6, and 1, which gives us minus 7. And if we look at on the right, we've got 4 minus 2s and 2 minus 2s, which is minus 8, and a plus 1, which is minus 7. So it's minus 7, minus 7. We know that we're okay.